Happy New Year's, everybody, and welcome to the Power of Words podcast. I am your host, Autumn Pixley. I would like to take a moment to thank all my friends and family for their love and support and all the new followers I have gained this past year. While I am currently working on my standing as an author, I would like to explain the long progress I have made in the past year. But first, a little about me. My journey began 2 years ago as I was struggling with what my future held, just like all of you. At some point, I realized I wanted to work on something I was good at. Growing up, I had always written stories and made up songs in my head that I would share with everybody, my friends, my family, my teachers, my classmates, and at some point, a lot of people told me that I was pretty good with words. Well, about high school, whenever I took oral comm my sophomore year, I went up there and I had presented one of my many topics we had done that semester. And one of my desk mates had told me that I was really good with words and that I should write. But the thought never really dawned on me. I've always been good with animals, and I've always had a love for them, and I wanted to do something with that. But eventually down the line, I didn't think I was good enough to be a veterinarian. And the amount of years I'd have to do in schooling was just looked like a headache. So eventually I decided that maybe I should work on some of my other talents. So I would write. I would write poetry. I'd write songs. I'd write incomplete sentences and pieces of words and phrases and whatnot here and there. But nothing ever really clicked together for a story. At one point in my life, I started to feel a little sad about myself, which a lot of people do at a young age, and it's pretty common in our society these days. But I decided to do something that would take my mind off of the pain. And so I started writing. And I started writing every day. I pulled out my laptop and I just typed. I didn't care what the story was about. I didn't care what the ending goal was. I didn't care about the development of the character's background. I just wrote. And I ended up finishing one of my very first books called The Cursed Ones. Now, I know many of you would be interested in this story, but since it was mainly a piece of writing, I decided that I don't think I would ever publish it. It had a lot of errors, and the plot was a little questionable at times, and it's just one of those things that you just want to leave buried in the ground. But then I started a new story. I started The Kings and Queens of Tragedy, which that was the old title of the book. The more I got to thinking about it, I worked on it for a year and a half, and the more I got to thinking about it, the more that title better fit the 7th book in that series. So now the story is called The Whisper of Waves. It's about a young girl who is orphaned on an island, and she's taken care of by the girl who runs the saloon. She's never known her parents, and she has nightmares all the times about being with them and then getting separated, but she can never see their faces, never hear their voice, she can never know their name, and she wakes up with tears, not knowing why. And she just knows deep down in the pit of her stomach that she wants more than anything to sail the world and to find the answers to who she is. And then she meets a boy. I know what you're thinking. This is probably your typical old traditional love story. Girl meets boy, boy meets girl, But it's not like that. She meets a boy. A young scallywag who's only ever known the harsh love of the sea. His name is Kipper, and he's the captain of a pirate ship, an infamous one, that's known for being bloodthirsty and ruthless. He sailed the seas ever since he was about 5, And one of his crewmates, his first mate, was the one who found him, floating along the seven seas on a sad-looking plank. He had no memory of who he was before, or even where he came from, and all he's ever known is the sea. So he's grown a little bitter, being around only men all of his life, and seawater, salt and all that fishy stuff. And he meets Tess, and they start to feel for each other. They start to talk, and the mysteriousness they keep about themselves to keep each other at arm's length ends up backfiring and drawing each other into one another. Eventually, Kipper asked Tess if she would like to join his crew, and if she would like to sail the seven seas while he is on his journey to find the lost island of tragedy, which most folks, since the legend is old and lost in time, along with the history that burned down in the Great Oak Library on the island of Meadowsbrook, most people refer to the legend as the Legend of Dragon Island. They say that the island is shrouded in a cloud of mist, and that you only find it by pure luck, or some might even say bad luck. And the island is said to have been made up of the bones of an ancient dragon long ago that had passed. Well, dragons are no more in this world, or so many people believe. No one's seen one for about 100 years. And so the legend goes. In their journey, they made a lot of friends, they made a lot of foes. And that was one of my very first books I actually really thought about, deep and long and hard. I spent a lot of time making storyboards. I wouldn't say playlists of songs for it, but I could probably make a few sea shanty playlists for it. I got some artwork commissioned from an artist I actually love their whimsical and fantastical style. And I got some artwork done of my captain. I'm still waiting for life to pick up so that I can hopefully indulge a little more into my writing. But I realized I had a knack for this. And that, this writing thing, it had a nice ring to it, and it wasn't too bad. Lately, I've been working on a story called Warm Cider Kiss. It's about two girls and a friendship that blossoms. But one of them gets into an accident, and this causes the other one to really, really think about what their life's going to be like if they lose them. And the fear ends up pushing them over the edge, and they push everybody they know and love away unintentionally. In that story, there may be a sad ending to it. Maybe the friend dies. Maybe it's a happy ending and she lives. All I can say is you have to read the story once I finally get the chance to publish it. It's one of the first stories that is actually finished. I decided to take a break from The Whisper of Waves about August of this year because 7 chapters in, 39 pages done, I realized I really messed up Tess and Kipper's personalities altogether, and that I really needed to go back, sit down, re-edit the whole thing just so that their personalities match, and then I'll be able to write. So I've been taking a break for a while. I decided to set it aside and work on at least 5 short stories in the meantime to at least get my name out there in the world as an author. But that hasn't happened yet. Still gotta write them, Can't publish an idea if you don't put it on paper. But the Whisper of Waves hopefully will be out before the end of 2024. I'm praying and I'm hoping. At least book 1 will be. It's a long journey, and if you stick to my channel and keep listening into my updates, I might not update often, but I do update. I try to at least update weekly on my progress and the process of writing and how far along I've come on my Facebook page and my Instagram, which I will be adding a link below in the description to both of those if you're interested in following me to keep up with any of my writings I've done. I've got many ideas I'm working on. So far, I've only finished 3 of those ideas, and the rest are still a work in progress. But every day I wake up and I write. I try to write at least 4 hours out of my day, and the rest of the time is for work and any free playtime, you know. Everybody's got to chill, everybody's got to relax every once in a while, and authors are no exception to that. We might seem like we mostly run on caffeine and lack of sleep, but there are days that I wake up and I open the computer and I'm like, nope, not today, world. We're gonna sit that aside and just be lazy. But everybody's like that. Another one of my books I've been working on is The Pages Between You and Me. Now, I don't have a cover for it yet. Warm Cider Kiss has a cover already made and finished that I will be adding in later down the line. And The Pages Between You and Me doesn't have a cover yet. Waiting to get that done eventually. But The Pages Between You and Me is about Lucy and Oliver. Lucy is an orphan who lives with her mother's best friend who works at a library. And the library has a little apartment in the back. It was an old Victorian, or it was an old French-style architecture building. And Miss Whittleman, the librarian, had bought the place off of an older lady who loved everything Paris. So the building's designed based after it, but it's got a 2-bedroom apartment upstairs of the library, and that is where Lucy and Miss Whittleman live separately. Lucy just graduated high school, and it's the start of summer. She's working her usual job at the front desk of the library when she realizes that she had some books she needed to stock. So she goes to the shelf to stock some books. And as she's stocking the books, she reaches up for one right at the same moment that a man comes up behind her and reaches for the same exact book. That man is none other than Oliver. She apologizes frantically, and they share a conversation by the window side, talking about their lives, what they like, what they dislike, and just being all friendly. By the end of it, Oliver gets up saying that he's late to pick up his little sister from her last day of school before summer lets out. And so he leaves. But Lucy, in the middle of conversation, totally forgot to catch his name. And so that is how the story of The Pages Between You and Me begins. It's a star-crossed romance between two characters. One is orphan, lives with her best friend's mother, or her mother's best friend, and works at a library. Seems like your average everyday girl. Except for she loves music. She loves everything music. She writes all the time in her journal and plays the violin. But she's too nervous and scared to share any of her work with anybody around her. So she's very secretive about her music. Now Oliver lives with his mom and his little sister after his dad had passed away. And since his dad had passed away, he decided to take on the role of the man of the house, picking up all sorts of odd jobs as he can just to support his family. And he loves his little sister. He's the best big brother you could ever see. But apart outside of school, he's got more of a bad boy kind of vibe. And so their meetings later throughout the book is, well, Lucy doesn't recognize him. She recognizes his voice and the scent of his clothes, but apart from that, his whole outfit change just throws her off the track until finally he tells her who he is, and she feels hurt and devastated. She tells him she doesn't want to talk to him anymore. Now, if you want to find out if they get back together, if they make up, and if they live a happily ever after, you gotta read the book once it comes out. Another book I've been working on recently, which, since it has a cover photo ready as well, that one will be like, along with Warm Cider Kiss, this one will be runner-up to be published soon, because the pages between you and me without a cover photo, I'm going to have to sit on the back burner once the editing is done and just have it idly waiting to be published when I have the cover. Can't publish a book without a cover. It doesn't make for good marketing. And it would be a little odd if a book cover was just blank, you know. But Warm Cider Kiss will be one of my very first stories out and about. It's not your traditional love story. It's more of like a forbidden fruit kind of love story. So if you're into that kind of thing, check it out. If not, I'd be advised not to read it. All of my books are child friendly. I try to keep it PG, low on the cuss words, family friendly, you know, because, I mean, a cuss word or two here and there moves the story along, like a pirate story, you know. Pirates, they cuss like sailors, so it moves the story along in that instant. But for a story like these, typically I don't try to encourage writing that, because it's just, for a lot of folks, it's distasteful. But Warm Cider Kiss is a good story. It's all PG. You know, there's no intimate parts besides maybe a kiss or two between most of my romances. Apart from that, it ain't really going to get spicy. I may make a suggestion that could happen, or a suggestion that it has happened, but going into detail for those scenes is not a part of my writing style. You'll have to check out other authors if that's the case. But back to the books. Warm Cider Kiss is going to be one of the very first ones out and about. And it's a pretty good story. The background behind it is, since I'm not really a published author out there, and I'm still working on my standing as one to get my name out there, I decided to enter a writing contest. And Warm Cider Kiss was one of the works of fiction I did for the writing contest. It was flash fiction. So I only submitted like a little over 1,000 words. The actual book is 5,000 words. So it's like a sit down 1 to 2 hour kind of read thing. So it's not super long. It's not drawn out. But the flow of the book is natural. The flow of the book is about a 3-month period from the start. Technically it's a 4-month period from the start of the prologue to the ending of the last chapter. But Warm Cider Kiss, I totally recommend it. I've already got friends who have read it and said it wasn't half bad. The pages between you and me, it's on the back burner. It's in the editing phase right now. I'm actually on to The second edit. The first edit for my books is a little different from traditional writing. So I had recently gotten a typewriter because I wanted, and it's a little silly, I wanted to get more into the idea of being a real writer, like a 70s, 60s, 80s kind of writer, sipping on your coffee, typing away on your typewriter kind of thing. And so I went online and I found one that wasn't half bad, and I got a typewriter. So my stories are currently being written via print. So I write them on the typewriter. For the short stories, I don't really go all that detailed into storyboards. Now, for my one book kind of books that are supposed to be thicker than a short story, those might get a bit of a storyboard and a plot development that gets a little more thought. And same thing with my books in a series. Now, I don't have many books I want to put into a series, but I've got a couple. The Whisper of Waves, which is the Rose Book series. That one's going to be a 7-book series. I have another story I've been working on that's still in the writing phase. It has not yet left the typewriter to be edited yet. And that is How Wars Are Started, which, if you love chosen one kind of stories with a legend and a hero and a bad guy and an anti-villain, an anti-hero, and a princess locked away in a world that's dying of hope with a little bit of elemental magic in there, it might be your kind of read. That one, right now, it's a 1-book kind of story. I've decided that once I finish it and once it's published, if the audience loves the book, like if the book skyrockets in profits, or, well, generally in sales, and I get a lot of reviews, good reviews or comments or likes about the book, then I may possibly publish the second book. Now, the second and the third book, because that one's a trilogy, the second and third book's going to be written just for my pure entertainment. But if the audience so wishes it, I will end up publishing the second book of that series, and possibly the third book. The reason I'm mentioning this is because I think it's fun to let the audience have a say in books that get published, I mean, I know I've gone to a bookstore and I've just skimmed books. I mostly just read the title. If the title catches my name, I pick up the book, I look at the cover, I'm like, interesting cover. I flip it over and I read the summary on the back or on the inside, and I'm like, sounds like a good book, and then I get it. Half of the time I'll read the book and it won't really catch my interest all that much at the beginning. And so I'll just have to be like, okay, just gotta set the book aside, leave it there for a couple months, and then I'll come back and I'll look at it and I'll be like, you know what, I haven't read that book in a while. Pick it up where I left off, start reading, and I'm like, wow, this is a really good book. And I don't want my stories to be like that. It's very rare that I've picked up a book in my life and I've read it and I've just ended up sobbing by the end of the story, or feeling this swirl of feelings that makes me feel angry, that makes me feel anxious, happy, and sad all at the same time. And that's the kind of feeling I want to portray in my writing. My writing is not all about, it's not typically all about, what I like to read. It's more about the feeling a reader gets out of reading this. They say authors live a million lives, and honestly, it feels like it's true. All the time when I'm writing and I'm like, how do I want this feeling to be put into words so that the audience understands what I'm saying. And I break into tears all the times. There's days I have to set aside a story and be like, okay, I gotta go cool down this meltdown I'm having right now. Go get me some lunch, drink me some sweet tea or something, and come back to it. And that's what I do. And I have to come back to it with a clear conscience and a steady heart, honestly. It's a roller coaster riding these days. But I want emotion. I want my stories to, how you say, speak to an audience. And that's what my main goal in my writing is to get an emotion, to evoke emotion in my characters to the point that it makes someone want to come back and read more. Another one of my stories I have finished that I have yet to enter any of the editing phases is The Mystic Rider. That one's about a girl who had lost her mother about a year ago. And on her 25th birthday, she is given a typewriter by her aunt that was a Christmas present her mom had gotten the year prior. Well, little does she know, this typewriter's a little bit special than usual. And she finds that out a little too hard when she decides to sit down and write. And when she starts writing on this typewriter, she gets sucked into this whole new world of wonder. And the typewriter's with her. Because the only way for her to get back home is to finish her stories. Now, the curse on the typewriter goes a little deeper than that, but I don't want to spoil anything until the book is out. But that one is the journey of a girl with a cursed typewriter, and she's got some big decisions she's got to make, some tough choices she's got to make. Now, I can't say if it ends happy or if it doesn't. Like all of my other books, they may end on a happy note. The guy might get the girl, or the couple might finally realize their feelings for each other, or maybe it ends with a big old wet kiss, something cliche like that. And some of them might end in a horrible death, the loss of a loved one, or being forever separated and never being able to get back to one another. Or it might even end in a friendship not being able to be fixed. I do try to make 50-50 of my stories happy, some sad, I don't like to teeter too much into the dark stuff, but some of my later stories may get a little darker. And at some point when I have more and more stories out, and I've got a better following for each of my books, I'm thinking I might switch over to like crime, mystery, just for the fun of it. I mean, I know most authors typically stick to one genre to write, but I like the idea of being a little flexible. I think that's the right word. Yeah. Flexible in my writing journey. Meaning, I don't want to be tied down to one genre. But I do write fiction. Fiction is the only thing I write. Fantasy, unicorns, rainbows, dragons, pirates, legends, chosen ones, 1,000-year war, all that fun jazz. That's typically what I like to write. It's what I like to read. I have read some realistic stuff that was pretty good too. Comics, blogs, you name it. I've probably read a little bit of every genre. And it also helps for research on my own books to see what other well-known, well-selling authors write these days that people enjoy. Because for me, it's not about what I like. It's about what the readers want. And emotion is just one of the things that I don't see in a lot of books. I mean, crap, you could write a pretty good book, pretty good romance, that's moving, that the guy gets the girl after they've been through a big struggle or a huge fight, or they had to fought off some enemy or something. And it's good. And the ending's great. They hug, they kiss, they get married, they have 12 kids, something like that. But I don't see a lot of books that make you feel like you're on a roller coaster. That make you feel something inside. That makes you want to pick up a sword and hop on a boat and go on a journey across the world. Or makes you want to get on a plane and skydive, I guess in a sense you could say I'm a little bit of a thrill seeker, but only on paper. Anything in real life like that, I probably would chicken out. But I want my stories to have such an impact that people want to keep coming back. And that is what my podcast is all about. It's a way for me to talk about the stories and the ideas and the characters I have. To talk about them like they're a friend I've known for years. Or talk about them like it's something sad I saw on the news or something realistic, All magic and fantasy aside, I do think about my characters and my books as family in some sense. I mean, I think to a certain degree, a lot of authors like to think of them that way. I mean, they're basically our children, You write them, you write their tragic backstory from how they started out, and as you write, you get to see them grow up. You get to see them learn. You get to see them make mistakes. You get to see them fail, love, live, and laugh. You get to see them do all these amazing things. And sometimes it's a little hard writing because of that fact. Because when you have to write a sad ending, or you have to write a sad part because it moves the story along better, it chokes you up. I'd be a liar if I said my stories haven't made me cry a time or two. I estimate I'll probably be ready to publish most of my books about sometime before summer. I'm hoping to get at least 1 or 2 out before the summer hits for 24. I mean, it's going to take a while. Writing, the way I do my writing is I write it on the typewriter. It comes off fresh and printed, full of life. I sit down with some whiteout and a pen and I go over the rough draft for the first time. Then it goes onto the computer for the second draft. And then from there, the third draft is just basically a read and make sure I didn't get any editing mistakes. And then it's ready for a proofread, a copyright claim, and boom, it's out to publish. And I know I just basically gave you the simplified version of how my self-publishing journey has been lately, but I tell you, it is a lot more complicated than what I made it out to seem, and it takes a while. I'm not saying to be discouraged from being an author, because writing is the most amazing thing I have found. I've always been a super huge book nerd. I mean, you can ask any of my friends if you ever meet them. They can tell you that as long as they've known me, I've always had a book stuck up my nose. One time or another, going through school, being at home, just out in the world. I mean, I used to walk around the hallways of my high school with a book in my nose, just walking down the hallway. Somehow I didn't crash into anybody, which was a surprise. But I'd still get about a chapter or two in down the hall. But I've loved reading. They say knowledge is power, and honestly, it really is. And, you can be very skilled with a pen and paper. Words are powerful, and words hurt sometimes. But that's why it's a better outlet to write a story. Like, let's say you're having a bad day. Someone brushed you the wrong way. You were already having a crappy morning, and then someone decided to make your day even worse. And you just feel so angry at them. You just want to punch them in the face. But that's not really healthy. It's not healthy to react on your impulses like that. And so to me, writing is a good outlet, just like any outlet. There's music, there's drawing. A lot of artists I know do vent animatics or animations, or they just do vent drawings, and it really helps people process. Same with listening to music, I know there's a time or two I've been angry and I just put on my headphones, and I just jam out to some rock music, and I'm like, I feel a little better. It's always the angry music when you're angry that makes you feel a little bit better. But writing helps too. That one book I had written, The Cursed Ones, writing about it and the forbidden love with it, and ending it on the note that the guy left for her safety, it made me feel better about my own self, made me feel better about life in general. At that time, it was a very dark time in my life, I will admit, but I'm learning to cope with it. Just like everybody else, you gotta go through life, and you just gotta deal with stuff. It's not easy. It's pretty hard. But it's something we all do. And for me, writing helps. I would totally recommend it if you needed something to let out. Like if you're bad with words, I find it ironic. I'm trying to become an author, and I write amazing stories, words upon words, yet when I'm stuck in front of someone or in a room with someone, I clam up. I like to say I'm not good with words, and I know my mom on a time or two has been like, if you're not good with words, how are you an author? How are you a writer? Well, you don't necessarily have to be good at talking to people to be able to write a book. Writing a book, it's kind of like an intimate thing. It's very personal. You sit down, you're all alone at home, you got your drink of your choice, whether that's coffee because you need the caffeine to stay awake, or whether that's hot tea because you need the tea, the herbalness of the tea to keep you focused, or if that's just loud music, It's a very personal thing for an author to write, because we sit down every day, we wake up, we eat our breakfast, drink our coffee, make about 10 more cups during the day, and we sit down at our computer, and it's just us and the computer. It's like sitting down to lunch with an old friend you haven't seen in years. You want to catch up. And that's all writing is just catching up with your characters, catching up with your stories, and making memories that will last. And that's what writing means, to me at least. Most authors might have a different opinion about writing, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Writing is writing, and it's different for everybody. Just like drawing is drawing, but it's different for people. Some people can draw realistic things. Some people can draw cities, villages, towns, bridges. Some people can draw cutesy stuff like chibi or cartoon or just animals. It's like that. It's a very one-on-one kind of thing. Nobody tells an artist that they have to draw. Nobody tells a writer they have to write. Nobody tells a poet that they have to, I guess, poet. Nobody tells us that we need to do it. It's just one of those things where you wake up and you look in the mirror and you tell yourself, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm passionate about. And this is what I love to do. And sharing that with people is an amazing experience. I know it's been tough writing. I won't lie about that. But I've learned that through my last 2 years that the journey, while it is hard and it has its ups and its downs, it has its good points. And talking with people, discussing your ideas, and coming up with stories people have never heard about before is a truly amazing feeling. I really, for one, love to write. And I love to tell people about my writing. You know, they might not want to listen to me. They might not want to hear about it. But for those that do, I love that they'll give me the time of day to just tell them about it. To just tell them about the ideas and the characters in my head. So that it doesn't feel like it's just a story for myself. It's something I can share with people and people can relate to because of my words. It's just one of those things. I would totally recommend it if you want to give it a try. You know, you don't have to be good. You don't have to be professional. You don't even have to, have a story in mind. You can just wake up one day and just start writing with your pen and paper, or even typing it out on your computer, and just start out with one word. One word is all it takes. One word. A good playlist is always good to have on hand, and the ideas will just flow. It's definitely something you gotta have a passion for. I wouldn't say it's something you're born with, but it's something that you find a love for. Like everything else in life, you gotta love it with all of your soul. But that's it for today's podcast. I just wanted to give everyone a warm welcome and a warm thank you and a happy new year. And to let you know what it is I do and what it is I hope to accomplish one day, and the stories that I love to share with all of you. If you just give me the time of day and stay tuned. I might not, like I said before earlier in the video, I might not, update that often, but if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I do try my best to update weekly on how my story is doing. And even if you take a little bit of time out of your day to read the descriptions on those videos or those photos, you'll see that I'm giving full detail updates on my characters, my books, where I'm at in the process of publishing, and where my journey has taken me. It's been fun this last 2 years, and I gotta say, I look forward to many more years doing this kind of work. It's just something about it is just fulfilling and very reassuring. But as, like I said before, this is it's a journey. It's a process. Everybody has a process they have to go through one way or another for something they love. And this is something I love. And this is my process and my journey. And it means a lot to me for all of you to follow me on that journey, to weep with me on that journey, to laugh with me, to be happy and merry as I go through all of this. I gotta say, going through this alone, it's not as fun. Having the support of my friends and my family behind me to push me along in my journey, it helps. And it warms my heart that they're there for me and that they support my passion as much as I love it. But thank you all for tuning in, and I hope to see more of your lovely faces in 2024 as I continue my journey of writing. Have a happy new year, everyone.